WCY.TV. My name is Michael, and who'd have thought that Weiner would be the new Deep Throat?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm gonna have to see if I can do you one better. But
Okay.
yeah, I'm Nicholas, and you know, it's hard to believe that 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 another person's wiener besides Bill Clinton would take Hillary down.
But I just find it that odd that Weiner would spill the beans after a third.
I don't. I think this is the one chance we're ever going to have in life to get the wiener jokes out of the way and be totally okay.
Yeah. So welcome to Thunderdome, people. It appears that the worm has turned. I mean, even not more than
is this the WikiLeaks October surprise?
It's November now, baby. We have we have less than 170 hours until we decide the future of humanity. To be quite honest with you, and shit's going down, kind of interesting. Nick, 2 hours ago, the FBI released a whole bunch of files relating to Mark Rich and his pardon when Clinton left office.
Oh yes, this was the buy the get out of jail free card.
He got his wife made a huge gigantic donation and got out of jail. So it wasn't actually free. I think it was something like $4 million is what the donation got to be. So it was not get out of jail free. It was more evidence to pay to play. But this is from an entirely, like we would say, ancient administration. I mean, I'm sure that it was before your children were born.
It was before mine. This is you would figure he left office in January 2000. Before GWB came in. So that's about the timeline. Late '99 was when he was doing his pardoning, and you just take a look at the list of people that he pardoned. Folks that had definitely contributed to him or were donors. Yeah, they went straight to the front of the line. So that's something that is a well-established pattern for the crime family.
Yeah, well, I'm going to get at the fact that we're less than 170 hours away from deciding the new leader of the free world until China decides to take that spot, and we have the FBI releasing information related to the spouse of one of these candidates. That's, I would say, going to be kind of particularly damning because, well, it's just more evidence of what the candidate that's currently running is accused of.
Well, so here's my thing in all this. I'm trying to look for the smoking gun and everything since we are a gun show.
It's kind of hard to see the actual smoking gun amidst the dead bodies and the fucking inferno that's going on around.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is that Director Comey never ever said that there wasn't ever any information that was not able to be prosecuted. That's not what he said. He said that her actions lacked the intent to withhold information or really harm the government. Well, what's to say that this new trove of 650,000 emails and like you and I talked earlier, giving Hillary's campaign manager the benefit of the doubt, saying that there's some duplicates in there. Well, what's to say that, oh, by the way, that out of those 33,000 emails and the whatever 150,000 emails already been turned over, you double that. Do you get 650,000? I don't think so.
No.
The math is not strong with this one, but I'm going to say no.
I have a feeling that this goes way beyond any sort of Clinton Foundation pay to play. This is further than trying to rig an election and dirty politics. I got a feeling that this is like absolute straight up treason. I think this is a selling out of the nation, and I do not believe that it stops with the Clinton and I have to say the Clinton cartel, because you're going to have to remember that if you were alive during the Clinton presidency, they were a package deal, and it's still going to be the same way.
See, that was the thing, and that's one of the most interesting points, is that a lot of the younger folks, the millennials that are just coming into voting in their first time, they've got no recollection of what life under the Clintons was like. Everything that Hillary Clinton was entrusted with in her husband's administration, she failed at. And it wasn't just like, hey, we just couldn't bring something across the line. No, she failed at everything. And the thing that I can't get out of my head is hearing her through the course of the debates saying, as Secretary of State, when I traveled to 150 something countries, she always led with that. And the thing that irked me the most was that your itinerary is not an achievement. That's an achievement for your travel agent. That's not an itinerary for that's not an achievement for the traveler.
Actually paying for that shit, They don't fly cheap.
Exactly.
What was it? Air Force One costs something like $250,000 an hour while it's in the air. With everything associated with it. Soldiers and airmen and AWACS and fucking support planes and gas and fucking vodka cocktails and whatever else.
House Communications Agency.
Right. So the money is staggering, and honestly, I don't even think the money fucking counts anymore, because they make it and they tell you how much it's worth.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
And then they tax you on it. Right?
Yeah. So, unless you're overseas.
No, you still pay taxes.
No. Well, at least from the military standpoint, you pay FICA, Social Security, but you're not paying any federal income.
You may keep your few shekels, but you're paying a blood tax at that point. You're paying a sweat tax and a tears tax.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's no fun sitting in a porta potty in 130-degree heat.
No way.
When somebody who has overdosed on creatine and amino acid for the last 6 months gets in there before you.
That just sounds like it stinks.
It literally does. But hey, in other news, did you hear that Huma Abedin is now just one of her staffers?
Yeah, she's as Chris Tingles Matthews referred to her. They are workmates. Like they have a cubicle across from each other. They sign off on each other's TPS reports.
Yep. So that and at that point, once you get demoted from pretty much chief of staff to office mate or a staffer, I think she's going to be on the Arkansas Express.
Yeah, Air Arkansas, destination Mena Airport, flight 666, departing soon. First class seats for Mr. Anthony Weiner. please step aside.
So do we give any credence to the tweet that came out in the aftermath of the Comey letter to Congress that said that files were found on Anthony Weiner's laptop that he shared with his estranged wife in a file folder named life insurance?
You know what? Otherwise, I would say, nah, this is nah. There's no possible. Wait. For fuck's sake, it's Anthony Weiner. All right. Now let's discuss this sumbitch. All right. He's under investigation by the NYPD and the FBI for, number one, for child pornography. Receiving text messages.
Not only child pornography, enticement of a minor.
Enticement of a minor. This is everything that his lefty standpoint is against, right? The whole fucking rape culture bullshit and all that. Here he is, exploiting his quote unquote white power and white privilege on unsuspecting youths, and that brings to mind just a whole shit ton of questions here, because you've got Huma Abedin, who in the the virulent right wing press has been described as like the high priestess of the Muslim Brotherhood, right? She's the queen of jihad. She's bringing the caliphate to the White House. How the fuck did she marry the most stereotypical pervert Jew in the entire fucking universe. I mean, he's like 30 pounds away from being the big guy with the nose and the bald head shaking his hands and schemes internally.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, how the fuck does the Muslim Brotherhood hook up with that? Unless you look to something like WikiLeaks, which shows that Israel and Saudi Arabia are totally in bed with each other. Hillary tried to usurp an election in Palestine. I mean, this is
not to mention try to have a citizen of a foreign country droned, as she put it.
Yeah, let's use like these euphemisms and shit. I mean, seriously, if you're gonna like blow up a United States citizen, no matter where they're at, use the actual entire military acronym. Let's send a GBU 18 to whatever, blow this motherfucker up wherever he's at. But I mean, don't just drone. Let's use the sharks with the lasers. Fuck, this is sick, dude. This is really sick. This is I mean.
So let's bring it back around. So, you talked about Chris Matthews. We talked earlier about a blast from the past, James Carville, going nuclear and throwing out there that the KGB has infiltrated the highest levels of our media and have started to swing the election. Did you hear it?
I did not hear him say that, but I've heard him in the media a couple of other times in the last, I got to say 72 hours, 48 hours, and I didn't know. But I mean, yeah, I at one point CNN had Ana Navarro, who is billed as a Republican, but has, is completely anti-Trump, and she's a Cuban immigrant, and her thing is that she's going to write in her mother for president because she can't stand Trump that much, and Hillary just isn't the right one. And I at one point she said, "Has anybody forgotten that Trump said pussy?" In the middle of all of this, and maybe we should shift the focus back to Trump and his nasty talk about genitalia. I mean. What the hell is going on here, dude? Seriously.
Well, we also just had that the House Majority Leader, Paul Ryan, says that he had already cast his vote for our nominee. Wouldn't even mention him by name.
Wouldn't mention him by name.
I think that's going to come back to bite Ryan in the butt. And then also John Kasich decided to write in John McCain as the nominee on the top of his ballot.
So basically, what you're saying is Kasich was like company on the Handbasket Express.
Yeah, I mean,
if Trump gets in, fucking A. Let's watch that. Let's put that. Let's put like the congressional hearings like on actual real TV, not C-SPAN. Let's put the Thunderdome that he will construct and put senators versus congressmen versus like angry crackhead ex-linebackers from a prison that he will recruit. And let's just, give them both like, axes. Give one a chainsaw and give one a sledgehammer. Let's go at it. All right.
So, the funny thing is that I'm looking at this like this is there is now talk on two of the major news outlets that said Trump has a path to 270. And basically what they've said is that if Trump flips Pennsylvania and has that go his way, and he was campaigning hard outside of Philadelphia in the suburbs, which are.
I know he went to Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I've got a secret contact in that area that was considering going, and I had suggested that he take a pack of hot dogs and throw wieners at the reporters.
that might get somebody arrested. But the funny thing is that you can hear the change in tone. 3 weeks ago, this was all but locked up. This was, we were getting ready to plan inauguration balls. We were getting ready to, pick out the new China that we're going to steal at the end of the term. Those plans were already laid out. And if you could hear both the president and his wife speaking at their engagements, there is a sense of urgency there that wasn't there a couple weeks ago.
I'll tell you what. Miss Alicia Machado, the chubby Venezuelan Miss Universe, went on. I guess it was a Hillary rally. I guess it had to be in Florida, and
Yeah, it was in Miami.
it was in Miami. Yeah, and she introduced Hillary, and she said that Trump only looks at people for what they look like, and I just kind of had to like really laugh.
Duh.
Of a Miss Universe contestant, like really, like seriously, like we want to understand your plan on like world peace. I mean, shall I reference Miss South Carolina and our lack of maps, such as
For U.S. Americans.
for U.S. Americans, not only the U.S. Americans, but South Africa and the Iraq and the Asians, such as.
Yeah. Oh well, I think it'll be an interesting next week.
This is I would relate to all of this the price of magazines and the price of spares that I'm seeing. I'm kind of in the market for magazines right now. I think I'm going to bite the bullet and make the purchase. But magazines that were $14 a week ago are $21 today. Magazines that were $9 a week ago are $14.99 today. I think there's the fear at this point, but honestly, I don't care what happens. They can put up WikiLeaks could put up a video of Hillary eating a baby, and it doesn't matter. She's still getting in. Goldman Sachs gave her the money.
Well, but you know what? At some point, the rest of the Klan is going to go ahead and start taking notice, because I believe that the headline on the Yahoo News page was that Dem donors are beginning to shy away from Hillary Clinton.
How much are Democratic donors? The only Democratic donor she needs is the Rothschild. She has 100 people come out and give $150,000 to have dinner with her so she can stand up and say something for about 7 minutes. Yeah,
and the content of what she says in those 7 minutes is pretty damning.
And as per the WikiLeaks and for everything else that's like breaking, we're living kind of in an interesting time where these people's just pure vacuous pomposity is coming back to bite them in the ass. Take
a look at John Podesta and the latest of his email droppings. Between him and Donna Brazil, folks are losing jobs, folks are losing access. At what point do people start really say, "Hey, the ship has a lot of holes in it right now"?
Well, all right, the guy who gave Bill Clinton routed $50 million into Bill Clinton Incorporated. Like in one of the emails, he said that they make the worst fucking decisions that he's ever seen. And this is a guy who's in charge of their money.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is that at the end of the day, what does the undecided voter say?
No. Let's just go with Hillary's defense. Let's go with the Democratic Party defense. It's the Russians, right?
The interesting thing about that was that it came out today from the FBI that Donald Trump has absolutely nothing to do with the Russians.
The FBI is racist right now because they just released this stuff a week, so they can't deal with it. It's the Russians. We're going with the plan. It's the Russians. That's what they're saying on CNN. All right, and honestly, CNN is the horse's mouth. That is Pravda. That is TASS. That's Baghdad Bob telling you that don't worry.
There are no tanks in Baghdad.
There are no
American tanks in Baghdad. Shout out to our good buddy Oddball.
And you know what?
Tanks in Baghdad.
I got to give a shout out to my boy Cheke, who's out there too. He actually just hit Iraq. And I think now he's been there probably about 48 hours. So wish that boy some luck and give him the best advice you can give to somebody going to Iraq. Give him the best one-sentence advice other than don't get shot. Don't get shot or blown up.
Take as much water and as much ammunition as you can hold, and then take some more.
All right. take as much water and as much ammo and mower.
Yeah, and take your buddy's ammo too.
and wear the body armor. I've seen that in the movie.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you. Judging from my experience, when it's 145 degrees, body armor probably adds about another 20. Not only is it the weight that you're carrying, but that's an insulator, and because of the ceramic construction, you are cooking inside of that thing.
Yeah, you're wearing a little oven. It's like you put on a Yeti.
It's pretty much it.
Yeah, no. So no matter what the media says, yeah, war is still going on. We got guys all over the place. If you know somebody, do a favor and go out and try and get some of that discount leftover Halloween candy that's at the store, for like 30 cents a bag or whatever. Go buy a bunch of that stuff that's like individual wrap and send that to somebody over there.
I'll tell you what, the things that soldiers and Marines want more than anything: chapstick, baby wipes, and bacon jerky.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, bacon jerky's gross. That shit's gross. Let's end regular beef jerky. Bacon jerky.
That's the stuff that keeps you not Muslim. Okay.
All right. Well, I can understand it. Yeah, non-kosher, non-halal food. I'll go with it.
There you go.
All right. Sensibility.
That's it. So yeah. So here we are. We are on the cusp of muzzleloader season. For anybody that doesn't know, muzzle loaders are considered firearms, but they're actual 45 or 50 caliber firearms.
In certain locations, they are not considered firearms. They're considered antique and primitive weapons.
Right, antique and primitive weapons.
On the level of like an air gun. Now, it holds a different classification for people with a felony, because I think at some point any sort of prosecutor worth his salt would probably come out and look at the definition of a firearm, which is something that propels a projectile by the expansion of gas, and I think they would win on that. But as far as like the general public is concerned, it's considered a primitive weapon, and it's kind of exempt from NFA status, is basically how that comes down. So that means you could have a 10-inch double barrel shotgun, but it has to be black powder. You cannot have something that, without going through the stamp and inspection process that fires a cartridge.
So speaking of something that fires a cartridge, I'm going to drop something in chat, and you guys, if you stop me if you've heard this one. But a woman in a hospital in Japan was undergoing a procedure assisted by robotic physicians, or surgeons, I should say, and she happened to pass gas, and it ignited the laser inside the surgery room, and she she sustained serious burns. Did you see that?
I did, and honestly, I feel for that woman, because I'm recovering from burns. And dear Lord, I didn't fart to get them burns. So yeah. I have them in a completely different area of the body, and I can understand the pain that would come associated with the farting area. And otherwise,
so lo and behold, if they ever say,
it's a shame that it happened during this whole Hillary thing, because she deserves her 15 minutes of fame, but it's going to get buried underneath. Seriously, that's.
If you sustain that kind of damage, you got to have a story behind it. There's a Lifetime movie in that, I'm sure.
And on top of it, it's from Japan. There would be like just a buttload of Hiroshima and Nagasaki jokes.
Fukushima now.
Yeah, well, Fukushima is an ugly thing, and I'll tell you what, that's also in the WikiLeaks, and we got lied to about it yet again. Everything was hunky-dory, blah, 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 but between Hillary and Huma and a bunch of other people, they knew exactly what was going on, everything that was burning and lost and people evacuating, and yeah, they knew what was going on. Don't worry, they got the Olympics, though.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing that I'm trying to take away from all this is, realistically, if Trump does become president-elect, how much do you think he will hold to his campaign pledge to nominate Second Amendment friendly justices in the profile of Antonin Scalia.
Gee, whatever. Trump says whatever he needs to say at the time he's got to say it. And you know what? Trump,
build a wall. Build a wall.
Build a wall. Build a wall. Grab him by the pussy. Trump says whatever he has to say to like impress whoever he's talking to at that point to sell the product, and the product is Trump. So whatever.
And that's part of it, because part of what people are buying into right now. And like I said, we talked earlier, and you never notice about how whenever Trump is photographed, he's never photographed from behind the lectern, looking out among the people that are at his rallies. Much like Hillary Clinton is not done the same way. And I'd like to submit that it's probably because if you put those venues side by side, you'd see a lot of empty seats on one side of that versus the other.
And you know, and I'll bet you there's something about Trump. You don't want anybody to see his bald spot, because you know that. Look at that hair. You know he got a bald spot the size of the Euphrates River on the back of his head. You know, I mean, it's huge. So maybe there's something to that. But I have a feeling that they don't want the numbers to come out. I mean, as we discussed last week, you know, Tim Kaine had a rally where 30 people showed up, and that included, you know, staffers and reporters. So what does that actually mean? Like 10 people at the most?
Right. Well, you know, and that's interesting, because didn't they cancel an event in Florida?
They've canceled events all over the damn place. Hillary's schedule is not actually up to date by any means. If you go to her website, which is another thing, she's fucking annoying.
Yeah, the self-promotion aspect of that during the debates was enough to
Jesus Christ. She self-promotes and she name drops. Like, well, I was having lunch with Katy Perry the other day, and we were discussing world peace. And what the fuck? You know, I mean, is she really trying? She thinks you're a bunch of idiots. She really thinks you're
that's the elitist attitude right there. So, I don't know. You know, the interesting thing for me in all this is that, you know, people have asked me, you know, why vote one way or the other. You know, and if you don't want to vote, that's your thing. If you don't believe that the voting works, that's your thing, no big deal. But all I know is that what I got with Bill Clinton is exactly what you're going to get with his wife, and I'm not down for any of it. You know,
well, that brings to mind the Michael Moore video. Did you happen to see that, where Michael Moore spoke about Trump? I guess Michael Moore, gigantic fat ass from Michigan. And, you know, I mean, I respect the people from Michigan. And
he's from Flint, and I'm going to blame the water crisis on him.
I'll totally blame the lead on him. But, you know, I mean, I understand and I sympathize with the people of Flint, because I've seen areas that get devastated by, you know, just companies just fucking them and moving out. And I've seen the other side where the companies move to in Mexico and how they exploit them. So, I mean, I really understand that. But he's like, honestly, he looks like a fat 72-year-old grandma.
Is he still rocking the long hair?
Yeah, he's still kind of rocking that mom mullet look and, you know, his mom jeans and all that. But I guess he made some sort of video, some sort of like, you know, independent 45-minute movie about Trump and how Trump is, you know, fucking Satan in a suit. And in this thing, he gave like about a 3.5-minute, 4-minute little rant about how in his area, Flint and, you know, Michigan, that whole Rust Belt area, Trump went to some council of like manufacturers or something, and said, if you take and move the car manufacturing out of this area and move it to Mexico, I'm going to put a 35% tax on it. And people had never heard anybody stand up to these motherfuckers like that. So, you know, you got a whole nation of people who've lost their house. You know, with that comes like the associated family stress. You get divorced, your kids move away, that kind of shit. You know, you're broke. You pick up the nearest bottle because fuck, that's all there is anymore. You know, you've lost the drive. No matter how hard you work, you end up in the shit. And this is their one chance. I mean, he calls him the human hand grenade. He's the Molotov cocktail they want to throw into the system that ruined their life. And rightly so. They say that he's going to go down, or they're going to go down on November 8th and put a big fucking X, as he exactly described it, in Trump's name. And honestly, I think there's enough people out there that hate Hillary that they'd vote for Satan before they voted for Hillary.
Well, we're about to see. And that's one of those things that I think that
but
as
then
time goes on, it's going to get more evident, because you know what? You've got states that have early voting. The numbers are coming in already. There's quite a bit of factors that pollsters have not been able to gauge, and a lot of it is people who have never voted before. There's a lot of people that are being motivated to vote one way or the other. And it's surprising is that these pollsters are not taking into account when they do their things. They have their metrics that they use. They're not taking into account people who have never voted before and are energized by a lot of things. The different.
The number one thing I have against how the polls are taken is almost 80% of these polls call people with landlines. There's a lot of people out there who don't have. I don't have a landline. I haven't had a landline since like 2000. Probably 2000 probably.
Yeah, I haven't had one since that time as well.
So I mean that they're calling our parents. They're calling our grandparents, and
who sadly are less and less mentally able, I should say.
Well, not only mentally able, but they grew up in a completely different era where the TV did not lie to them. I mean, for Christ's sakes, they saw us beat the Nazis on TV. They saw us go to the moon on TV. It was a completely different time. The government did not lie, and now you've got information. I mean, you've got WikiLeaks, and it's a lot for people to realize that everything they've been taught to believe is based on sand and lies, and it's not even our sand. They sold the sand a long time ago.
You're the uranium rights.
Sand and this is I mean, shit. Everything you can say, she's done. I mean, my addiction to CNN is just it's embarrassing almost. But I have to hear it. I mean, this is the official. This is the party line. This is enemy communications, and they're scrambling. I mean, they really are.
Well, the interesting thing is that Hillary Clinton has a special
that shouted "USA" and
this was at the Trump rally.
Yeah, the Trump rally. Okay, so let's describe this. So some dude was at a Trump rally and was seated somewhere near the reporters. How convenient! And during the middle of the "USA, USA, USA" chant that is at every Trump rally. He turned around and pointed at the reporters, got them on camera, and he was pointing at them shouting, "USA, USA," which gave every media outlet the wonderful opportunity to, every Trump supporter is an anti-Semite, blah, blah, blah. They're not really an anti-Semite until they figure it out. But start playing that whole 9 yards thing, and it's just the puerile desperation of it. I mean, this is, they're digging out from the bottom of the honeypot, man.
Well, yeah, and then lo and behold, guess who the guy is?
Once again, he's a professional actor. The guy's got several videos on YouTube of pranks and stunt videos. He's got a Facebook page that was recently changed to be a right-wing Trump supporter, but he's got a long history prior to that of being a left-wing Hillary, every sort of left-wing neo-Bolshevik cause out there. This is crap. And then we got to go with the Utah independent candidate, Evan McMullin, who is a former CIA agent and former Goldman Sachs employee, like you ever leave those two groups. Some white supranationalist from Northern California spent $2,000 and made 193,000 robocalls to his home district in Utah, his home county area, and basically said that his mother was a lesbian and he's a closet homosexual and blah blah blah. And I mean, just almost virile, and hey, it might be true for all I know. It could be complete and total lies for all I know. But this guy went and did it. Now I got to look at things like that garner immediate media attention to somebody who's, fuck, who is this Evan McMullen dude? I mean, he's not half as exciting as like D's Nuts or Vermin Supreme. I mean, fuck, at least Vermin Supreme wears a fucking boot on his head. This guy's a former Goldman Sachs and CIA agent, right? So he gets this, horrible racist fucking attack that comes out of nowhere that immediately requires CNN to go into fucking meltdown mode. It's a setup. That's a setup. What a bunch of bullshit, man. I mean, seriously, that's the biggest load of bullshit I ever smelled.
and Lord knows we've had our share.
Right. I mean, seriously. I mean, look, if you really want to get into the bullshit, every one of they just released the Omar Mateen, the Pulse nightclub shooter.
Yeah, or the lack of a pulse. Yes.
Yeah, right. The worst mass murderer who, by the way, his wife took off. She's been missing for 3 months now. Under FBI surveillance, and oops, she got away.
Yep. It's convenient how that happens often.
It happens in every one of them. But they just released his 911 tapes when he called in, and he's in some kind of studio. You can't hear anything around him. Everything we got that he was in the middle of shooting people when they called 911. No, he was in a bathroom. He was in his house.
Which yeah. Speaking of houses, I saw a story that linked the rise of Trump in the last few weeks to the San Bernardino shooters. And, of course, the San Bernardino shooters were famously, their humble abode was opened and reporters broke in and basically contaminated a crime scene.
Conveniently. And honestly, the same thing happened to this Mateen dude. They got into this place, too. But I remember seeing the thing with the San Bernardino shooters. I was watching it. I mean, somebody stole popsicles out of their fucking freezer. Like
sell them on eBay.
I think he went home and took them. It was in the middle of the summer over there. It was like 102 or something. It was hot.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy.
So, I mean, this is look, go out there, spend whatever money you can blow right now, and buy yourself a gun if you don't have one. Buy yourself an extra gun. It ain't going to hurt you to have an extra one. What was it going to do? Take up some space?
Take up some more space and make the other ones in your closet jealous.
Yeah, really. What are you going to do? Fondle it more than the other ones? Buy some.
They're not going to complain, folks.
Seriously, you can cheat on them things. They don't care.
Oh, my goodness. So, yeah, that's one of the things. I think we need to reiterate the Privy Partisan recall on all 6.5 Grendel ammunition. Was in a forum at work, and some folks were remarking about how affordable the 6.5 ammo from Privy is right now, and I had to issue a stop press notice on that.
It's awfully cheap.
Yeah, it's awfully cheap because it's being recalled.
That's too funny. I'm sorry.
So you can go right to the Privy Partisan USA website, and they have a very big notice about the 6.5 recall.
Yeah, don't look. I'm not a 6.5 shooter. That's kind of like something that's sort of specialized. If you do shoot 6.5, you should be aware of this.
Yeah, certainly, and directly from Privy, which is a Serbian manufacturer. The recall that they are voluntarily putting out there applies to all forms of their 6.5 ammunition. They say do not sell or use the following products, which is their 110 grain full metal jacket boat tail. Do
not sell because they just took $5 off the eBay price or the price.
Yeah. So they've got the 120 grain hollow point boat tail, and that it's interesting because this is something that Privy is pretty well and widely respected manufacturer of ammo.
I got no problem with Privy. They make the stuff for Tula. They make the Tula brass mac stuff.
Yeah, so
sometimes they're interchangeable. They make commie ammo.
Yeah, they do, and they've actually started they've actually came out and started building the 300 blackout rounds, as well as they've really consolidated their 5.56 and 223 Remington lines. So they have they're affordable ammunition. When they're not being recalled, and
and when they are being recalled, it's extra affordable.
Yeah. So that's one of those things that I think it's interesting to know. You got to keep on top of recall notices, especially when they come out from the manufacturers, because at that point it's a known vulnerability and somebody is bound to get hurt if they keep using that ammo.
I can't say that I necessarily check manufacturers' websites for issuances of recall notices. I usually hear through the grapevine. And but once I do hear about it, I will go and check and see if I am affected, if I've got any kind of inkling that I'm even remotely affected by it. We've seen catastrophic failures in firearms before, and they're not pretty. A lot of the times they're not fatal, but you don't want to have a hand that's out of condition for 3 days, 4 days. You don't want to metal out of your forehead.
Certainly. Certainly. So yeah, that, and that's one of those things that I think a lot of us have our own go-to brand. For the longest time, mine was Federal. If I was shooting 308, I would use Federal. If I was using my 8mm Mauser, I would go to Privy. If I could not get my hands on the German RWS or Gecko ammunition, what do you think about the Fusion line of ammunition?
I think it's expensive. I think it's got an interesting bullet design, but they gave it a fancy name, and it's 30% more than a comparable bullet that's less high tech, but still, bounces into the target at the same speed. And honestly, at that point, it doesn't matter if you got 2 more cuts in the jacket that are 1.4 millimeters or anything like that. The bullet hits. So I'm kind of skeptical of that specialty ammo, unless I guess I was going to be in some sort of shooting competition where I needed something. But at that point, I think you'd reload your own. So honestly, I think it's almost kind of like a gimmick, almost like the Zombie Max ammo was. What was that stuff? Yeah, Hornady Zombie Max.
Yeah, I haven't seen that in stores.
Haven't seen that in a good long time. All right, that was the exact same stuff. It's critical duty or critical defense, depending on which load you got it in. And they sold it. They put it in a different colored box, and they sold it for a couple bucks more. And honestly, I think it's.
And people,
I'll tell you who's the greasiest son of a bitch in something like that was Ted Nugent. Ted Nugent had Ted Nugent ammo, and that was at Cabela's, and where you could get a comparable box of Remington or a comparable box of Winchester or a comparable box of Federal for $18 to $22 in that range. The Ted Nugent went for $47 a box, and it had a picture of his smiling ass on the front. And he's a jackass, and his double-priced ammo is jackassery. So yeah, I'm not really a fan of that. Look, the militaries around the world have been killing lots of things with solid metal bullets for a long time, right? Copper-coated, no hollow point, no nothing. It's just a bullet that goes, and it's not tailored for accuracy or anything. It's tailored for cost. They've been killing.
His brand was what? American Whitetail?
Yeah, I think it was American Whitetail. I think that's what it was. It came in a great big red, white, and blue, American flag box with his, he was wearing his mossy oak cowboy hat and had his wild-eyed grin. So, yeah, Ted Nugent he's a cartoon.
As most of them are when they get to that stage.
He'd have been a perfect vice president for Donald Trump. Seriously, Nugent Trump, that would have been awesome.
God, you would have done better with Hillary and Rosie O'Donnell.
Honestly, I always thought it was going to be Hillary and Rahm Emanuel.
I remember you saying that, but that wasn't the plan. You can't put one right up front. You can't do that.
But she had one right up front. She had the high priestess of the Muslim Brotherhood who was married to the stereotypical Jewish pervert. Do you not think that the Mossad had their claws into her?
That's an office mate.
Yeah.
That's a work mate.
They
That's
were
not
working.
anybody important. That's not anybody important.
Honestly said hi to each other in the hallway by the coffee machine. Sometimes they discussed lesbian TV shows by the water machine.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Hey, all right, let's do some gun safety before I start getting angry.
There you go, because nobody wants to make a negligent discharge when you're angry.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so the first rule of firearm safety is every firearm is loaded until you physically and visually inspect. So go ahead and drop the magazine out, crack the action back, flip the cylinder open, put your finger into the chamber, make sure there is no bullet there. If you cannot put your finger into the chamber, you should probably look a little bit closer and see if there is a piece of brass in there. If there's a piece of brass in there, please remove it, and then the gun is safe. Rule number 2, keep the barrel pointed in a safe direction at all times. Do not cover anything you do not wish to destroy. Rule number 3, know it is your target. Know it's beyond your target at all times. Rule number 4, the most important rule, is keep the booger hook off the bang switch until you are ready to discharge the shooting button. Because, damn it, they're going to use it against us. It's coming. You know it's coming. It's in the prices. They're going to use any kind of possible fuck up that anybody comes across. And, oh my God, look at this. This man with a high-capacity Uzi machine killed everybody. And, you know, it was some dude who, like, shot a hole in his car or something getting out.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, the funny thing is that while there have been shootings off the Heezy for Sheezy in Chicago, I think they're over 600 at this point.
Over 600 this weekend. It was 17 killed and 41 wounded. That's
where were the calls? Where were the calls to end this senseless gun violence?
I'm sorry, Trump said pussy.
There you go.
Seriously, Trump said pussy. Anything you can come up with, Trump said pussy, or he's a bigot, and you know, whatever.
Yeah, KGB's running the election.
Yeah, I forgot to mention the Russians. Thank you.
Yeah, you gotta mention them. And you know the interesting thing in this is going to be what other kinds of ammo and firearms are the State Department going to throw some kind of export control or import control on that we won't be able to get our hands on.
Okay, so anything that's from anybody who's aligned with the former Soviet Union.
Right.
So that would probably be like Checkpoint Arms, anything that's not Kalashnikov USA. I would guess probably end up with some sort of import ban on Tula ammunition. Probably end up with some sort of export ban on Fiocchi ammunition because the Italians haven't necessarily been involved with NATO either. And
so that's one thing I think is kind of Fiocchi might not be touched because they're sporting line of ammunition and shotgun ammo, and they're relatively small in the centerfire rifle ammunition category.
I personally prefer Fiocchi ammunition, centerfire pistols. I'm in 9mm. I like the 147 grain flat nose that they have. I think it feeds fine, and honestly, it's a bigger chunk of lead coming out. And honestly, I got no in handguns. There is no issue of stopping power. A handgun is inherently underpowered as it is, unless you're carrying one of them 500 Smith & Wesson revolvers that has to have like a rolly cart to go with it. Every handgun is underpowered. 44 Magnum's underpowered because 44 Magnum usually doesn't have a barrel long enough to achieve the massive power potential that the 44 Magnum cartridge has. In a 4-inch barrel, it's nothing. And honestly, you're not going to carry anything bigger than a 4-inch barrel. So every firearm, every handgun is underpowered. Doesn't matter what it is. At that point, I want to make hits.
Well, I just dropped an infographic in chat since we mentioned Fiocchi. You take a look at that graphic, and you'll see that the bulk of their ammunition that's manufactured in the United States is centered around their shot shells, pistol ammo, and the centerfire rifle ammo. Their
That's their
rimfire.
sales. It's not manufactured in the United States.
No. It lets you know what is manufactured out of that category. So, out of their 35% of their market for manufacturing in pistol, 75% of their ammunition is made in the USA.
Wow,
100%.
interesting.
Yeah, 100% of their shot shells are made in the United States, as well as 95% of their centerfire rifle ammunition. Their rimfire stuff is not made in the States. So
I don't find that to be odd, because rimfire, to set up for the manufacture of rimfire, is quite a significant investment in capital. The machinery required for that and the skilled technicians that you need for the manufacture of quality rimfire ammunition is quite expensive. That's why CCI ATK is basically the king, and because they've already got the investment there when the price was cheap to get it. Now it's not so cheap.
Yeah. So that's one of those things that kind of like to know a little bit about the manufacturer. What do you think about the conglomerate? That runs a couple different things, like Freedom Group. What do you think about them and the Remington line?
I'll tell you, Freedom Group on its own, which is owned by Cerberus Capital, kind of scares me, because it's becoming a kind of a monopoly, and dependent on who gets behind the power at that point. And in the business world, it's easily manufactured, as we're seeing through everything that's coming through these WikiLeaks. Money can be moved instantly, and people can be swayed with a couple of promises. That kind of scares me, because who's to say at some point they say, okay, well, fuck the quality control, make everything, for as cheap as you can, and everything turns to shit. Or they just say, turn it off. We'll liquidate these companies. We can take the loss. We'll sell the machines for scrap. We won't sell them off to somebody who can make another business. We just sell them for scrap.
Well, that's one of those things that you talk about, selling things for scrap or getting out of the game. Well, let's talk about your favorite, CCI. They're in the game, and they're going to be in the game for a long time.
Let's hope so. Let's hope they're in the game, and let's hope they're on the right side of the field, because their bread and butter comes from the people of the United States, the citizenry. I do not believe the bulk of their contract comes from, or of their income comes from military contracts. The bulk of their money comes from Joe Neckbone, who goes out there and takes a chunk of his paycheck and goes out and buys a couple boxes of Stingers, if he can find them.
Yep, and CCI, for those who don't know, is American-made ammo, Lewiston, Idaho, and you can't get much more American, red-blooded American than you can get in Idaho. Well, unless your last name happens to be, what's his name? Almost forgot. Old Sergeant, Sergeant Turncoat. What's his name?
Bergdahl.
Bergdahl. There you go.
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah, he's another interesting. Didn't Kim Jong-il, Saddam Hussein, and the ghost of Gaddafi congratulate him?
Maybe. Speaking of Kim Jong-un, I don't know if you've seen his wife has not been seen in public in a few months.
All the news I need about North Korea, I get off of North Korea's Twitter.
North Korea's official Twitter feed.
North Korea's Twitter account is all you need to know about North Korea. I don't care if they got a bomb. We gave them the bomb. We let them build the bomb. North Korea is a big old fucking boogeyman. They got a bunch of guns, and yeah, they want to come back because they want to steal everybody's fucking Samsung they want to steal everybody's phone, everybody's Hyundai in Seoul. They want to get internet porn. They're hungry. They like some of that bitchin' Korean barbecue. North Korea ain't a threat.
No. All right.
You got a little bit more input. I'm not asking you to divulge national secrets. Do you honestly feel that, personally, that North Korea is a threat? I mean, to us here in the U.S. United States, where none of us have maps such as?
So the Broncos are 5-2 right now.
I was going to say, all right. Well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you in that situation, but honestly, I don't think they're a threat. They don't have food. They have to give people methamphetamine instead of food.
But they have the best methamphetamine delivered by unicorns.
It might be really good methamphetamine. But I mean,
Yeah.
into the
Come
Twitter.
to Best Korea. We have meth and unicorns.
I don't know. All right, so let's go into something else that'll like make you like choke up for a second. Norinco put out a couple of photos of some very interesting rifles, and me being alive before all the unpleasantness went down, I've got kind of a fond spot and a warm spot for Norinco, and some of that stuff looks pretty interesting. And something I find to be notable, it looks like it's all for export, and it uses existing magazine patterns that are in production now. It uses the Stenag 5.56. It uses the current AK magazine, and it uses the 308 NATO magazine from like an AR-10. I think those are pretty interesting rifles. They call it the NAR, and then there's the NAR 5.56, the NAR 739, and the NAR 751, which is 5.56, 762 by 39, and 762 by 51. So I think those are interesting. They look kind of like derived from AKs, have that same kind of like short stroke piston system, kind of scar looking.
Speaking of short stroke, just happened to watch a football game this weekend, and happened to be between the New England Patriots and one of the fans threw a missile.
It was on the internet. That wasn't even top secret stuff. It was on the goddamn firearm blog.
There you go. Oh man, this evening's edition has blown through.
I'd like to thank Miller Lite for making this evening possible, and my God,
well, I will give a shout out to the beautiful and wonderful growers of Martinelli's apple cider.